Hello and welcome to my ultimate endgame guide for Myel, and this is after the Stendhal nerf, which I still believe Myel is the strongest character in the entire game because she can still take down every single enemy in the entire game, including all bosses, in a single turn, and I've been able to do 27+ million damage with Myel in one hit. And considering the fact that we can attack twice in the same turn with certain pictos means that we're able to do 40+ million damage, which is enough to take down literally everything in the entire game in one turn, which makes the build pretty much still just as powerful as before if you think about it. So without further ado, let's talk about how this build comes together. It's going to have a few adjustments, starting off with Monoka, which is actually going to be quite important for this build because he has a couple of skills which is really going to help out Myel do a lot more damage. So how does this work with Monoka? Basically, we are going to make use of a skill called the Glaze Earthquakes. Now, Glaze Earthquakes, when you are in heavy mask, is going to apply powerful to all allies, and this is going to be very important that you are in heavy mask, otherwise he's only going to apply powerful to himself. Now, there are weapons that are going to start you off in specific masks, so as long as you have a weapon that's going to start you off in either Almighty Mask or Heavy Mask, you will be able to get this. It's very important that you start off in this specific skill because you want to make sure you do this in this order. You want to attack with Glaze Earthquakes, and then after that you want to attack with Chapelier Slash in that order, because what Chapelier Slash is going to do is going to apply Mark to all enemies. You don't want to apply Mark to all enemies first and then go into Glaze Earthquakes, because then you're going to take off all your marked when you do end up using that attack from Monoka, and you don't want to obviously waste it on Monoka. You want to use it for Myel. So when you make use of the Chapelier Slash, all the enemies are going to have Mark, and this is going to allow Myel to do a lot more damage. Now, the rest of the skills you don't need to worry about because that's pretty much all Monoka is going to be doing here. Now, the weapon that I'm making use of is the Joyaru. This one is going to start me off in a Mighty Mask, which basically counts as any mask on the Bestial Wheel. But if you don't have Joyaru, you can find something like, for example, the Grandaro, which is going to start you off in Heavy Mask, and that's all that really matters. Luckily, the Chevalier Slash does not require us to be in the appropriate Agile Mask in order to get the Mark. You get the Mark regardless what mask you're in, so it doesn't matter what mask we're in for the Chapelier Slash, but it does matter what mask we have for the Glaze Earthquakes. That's going to be very, very important. Now, in terms of pictos, we don't have to really worry about Monoka here. You can do whatever you want there. In terms of the Lumina, I'm not going to go through everything because it doesn't really matter as long as there are a couple of things you do meet the criteria of. The rest does not matter. Now, in terms of the AP, which is going to be quite important because we need to make sure that Monoka can do both those attacks on a single turn, which means starting things off, we have to talk about the Cheetah Picto, which is going to allow us to always play twice in a single turn. This is going to be crucial for this build, and if you don't have this picto yet, you're going to have to go to defeat Sprong on the continent. He is going to be a giant metal rock-like monster you're going to find in the middle of the ocean, and defeating him will give you the Cheetah Picto. He's quite a tough boss. He's got a lot of HP, so if you're still in the earlier stages of the game, you might have a difficult time with him, but in the late stages of the game, he isn't too bad, and you should definitely go defeat him for the best picto in the entire game, aka the Cheetah Picto. Then moving on to the AP side of things, we're going to need to make sure that we have Energizing Start 1, 2, and also Energizing Turn, which is going to give us +1 AP on Battle Start as well as Turn Start. And then I'm also making use of Energy Master to basically double the AP that I gain, which is going to allow Monoka so much AP to do both attacks on the same turn. Now, you can get the Energy Master by defeating the Serpent Fair giant purple snake-like creature you're going to see flying around in the air. That's going to be a pretty tough boss as well to take out, so you're going to need to be in the late stages of the game to do this, but once you do take it out, you will get this very useful picto, which is going to give you double energy. Essentially, every time you gain energy, it will give you +1 extra. Now, you're also going to be making use of First Strike with Monoka because you want Monoka to start things off. It's very important that Monoka goes first, so you want to start things off with First Strike so that Monoka can obviously lead the battle and get all those buffs and debuffs applied before anything else. Now, the rest of Monoka's abilities don't really matter except for maybe Shielding Death, which is going to be on death, allies gain 3 shield points. This is going to be very valuable for Myel. I'll explain to you why later, but this is going to also obviously help Myel out. The rest of the Luminas and Pictos don't really matter. I'm not going to bore you with the details. Put whatever you want there. But now let's go talk about the star of the show, what the video is all about, which is going to be Myel. Now, Myel's going to make use of a very particular weapon, which is going to be important because it's going to start you off in Virtuous Stance. The rest of the perks don't really matter here, so I'm not going to really discuss them. Now, the Medallum weapon is going to be obtained by defeating Golgra in the Gestural Village, but you have to defeat her using Myel, and once you do this, you're going to be rewarded with this weapon, which is going to be, again, very crucial because you're going to start you off in Virtuous Stance, and Virtuous Stance is going to basically double the damage you do in the next turn, and that is going to be very crucial because it's going to allow you to essentially, well, double your damage. Instead of doing 13 million damage, you're now doing 26 million damage, or instead of doing 26 million damage, you're now doing 52 million damage, or whatever the amount of damage that you're able to do, and that's obviously a massive benefit. So moving on to the skills now, I'm not going to discuss too much detail on all of them except for Stendhal and Last Chance. Stendhal and Last Chance is going to be your bread and butter, where Stendhal is going to be the massive damage dealer, and Last Chance is going to be able to set this up to be able to do this every single turn because Stendhal does require 8 AP, so it makes it a little bit expensive. So what Stendhal basically does is it does an extreme amount of void damage to one enemy, and that is going to practically do 27+ million damage. damage on a single hit. And then it's also going to require 8 AP, so it's a little bit expensive. In order to make use of this multiple times a turn, we're going to be making use of Last Chance, because what Last Chance is going to do is going to do two very valuable things for us. The first being that it's going to fill up our AP and put it all the way at 9 so that we can do Stendhal again. And then it's also going to switch us over to Virtuous Stance so we can do double damage on Stendhal when we do make use of that Stendhal a second time. Now, it's also important to note that it's going to take us down to 1 HP. So you're going to have to be comfortable with having 1 HP remaining, because that is going to be the requirement in order to make this work. However, we do have some things that are going to synergize with us being at 1 HP. There are some Luminas that are going to make us actually stronger at low health, so it's not as bad as it might seem. Now, moving on to the pictos for Myel, we're going to be making use of Confident, which is going to let us take 50% less damage but can't be healed. This one doesn't really matter. We mostly have it here just for the extra critical rate, because it has a 31% critical rate. You can put whatever you want on this one as long as you have high crit rate. Most of what you're looking for here is going to be attributes, as you are looking for things that are going to increase your critical rate in order to do more damage. We're also making use of Shortcut, which is actually very important for this build, because what Shortcut does is it not only does have 36% crit rate, which is very valuable here, and also some extra speed, but it's also going to come with a very valuable perk, which is going to be immediately play when falling below 30% health once per battle. And what's so nice about that is when you do end up using your Last Chance, which is going to set you down to 1 AP, this is going to then kick in the ability from Shortcut and allow you to play an extra turn. And this is actually going to stack with a cheater perk, allowing you to actually do 3 attacks on a single turn. So you can basically start off things with Stendhal, then use your Last Chance, then use Stendhal again, which is going to play for insane amount of damage, which means that you're going to be able to double dip on that Stendhal on a single turn, doing potentially 40+ million damage on one single turn. So that's going to be a very important picto in order to achieve. And then we're also making use of Second Chance. This is just a nice to have. I kind of want it there because it's going to be able to revive your Myel, and since she's so important in the build, having her alive at all times is quite crucial. This one is not very important to have, however, I just like to have the revive. But if you don't have this picto, you can get it by defeating a certain boss in Act 2. You will get it. Otherwise, you can use whatever you want here, as long as it has some decent attributes like health and crit rate is what we get from this, which is actually very valuable in this build. Then moving on now to the Lumina points, we are going to have pretty much every Lumina point that you can possibly fit that does extra damage. So if you don't have as many Lumina points as you see me making use of right now, you just want to make sure that you have as many damage Luminas as you can. Anything that increases your damage, you pretty much want to put on. If you don't have enough Lumina points on, obviously you will just lose a little bit of damage each time. Maybe instead of doing 27 million damage, you'll only be able to do 24 million damage, or maybe 20 million damage or whatever. But you can build to and work towards this. The more you progress in the game, the more Lumina points you will get, and the better you'll be able to make your damage output. You can even make it better than me, because my Myel is only at level 87. But if Myel was higher level, like let's say 98 or 99, she'll obviously be able to do even more damage than what I'm currently doing in this build. So without further ado, let's talk about the Luminas here. First, we're going to have a Death's Door, which is going to allow us to do 50% more damage when the health is below 10%. And this is obviously going to be for when you do end up making use of that Last Chance. You're going to be at 1 HP, so that's going to enable at Death's Door. Then we're also going to make use of Augmented First Strike, but this is going to allow us to do 50% more damage on the first hit once per battle. So once again, extra damage. We're also going to be making use of Base Shield, and this is going to be obtained by doing the Chosen Path, where you're going to have to fight off a bunch of bosses one-on-one with all your characters. It's going to require you to obviously be fairly high level in order to do this, but once you do get it, it's going to +1 shield if not affected by any shield on turn start. And this is going to be important because I'll discuss with you later on why shields are going to be quite valuable for this build. Then moving on to the next picto, Cheetah, very important for this build as well. You're going to be wanting to get this by defeating Sprung, as we mentioned earlier. This is going to give you the strongest picto in the entire game. Then we could also have Confident Fight, and this is going to give us 30% increased damage but can't be healed, which doesn't really matter because we're not even going to bother with healing, since we are going to be one-shotting everything anyway. So it doesn't really matter about healing because the battles aren't going to last long enough that we care about it. We're also making use of Energizing Start 1, 2, and 3, and this is going to allow us to get to exactly 8 AP, which is going to be exactly enough in order to do the Stendhal ability, which is all we really need with this build. We're also making use of First Defense, and like a lot of other pictors in this build, this is going to give us more damage, so 50% extra damage on the first hit. We're also making use of Glass Cannon, which is going to give us 25% more damage, but we're also going to take 25% more damage. Doesn't really matter because we're probably not going to take damage because we're probably going to end the fight in one single turn. We're also making use of Immaculate, which is going to give us 30% extra damage until a hit is received. Again, doesn't matter because there's never going to be a chance for the enemy to really hit us. We're also making use of Inmedeus Res. Now what Inmedeus Res is going to do is going to give us +3 shields in battle start, but maximum health is half. Now the reason why this is quite important is going to give us more shields, and shields are very valuable because we are also going to be making use of the thing called Powerful Shields, which is 10% increased damage per shield point on self. That's why you want to make sure that all your allies have shielding death on them, because when they do die, they're going to apply 3 shields to all your other allies, which means that you can basically sacrifice your allies, and if you really want to, you can pump up a lot of shields onto Myel, and then she can do even more damage. If 27 million damage you think is not enough, you could potentially do more like that. We're also making use of Inverted Affinity, which is going to allow us to apply Inverted on self for 3 turns on battle starts and do 50% increased damage while inverted. And again, inverted, what that's going to do is means that we can't heal, but we already can't heal in the first place, so this doesn't even give us any more disadvantages, and we don't even care anyway because we're just doing so much damage that it just doesn't matter to heal. We're also making use of First Strike. Now, it's also very important that the combination of attacks must go in order of Monoka, then Myel. So make sure that when you do equip your team, you end up making sure that Monoka is the first one equipped, then equip Myel, and then your third character. Doesn't really matter who the third one is, just to make sure that Monoka starts, then Myel, and then the third character. That's very important because you want to make sure that order is what happens when you do end up fighting. We're also making use of Roulette. Now, the reason why you're playing Roulette is it's going to have a 50% chance of either doing 200% damage or 50% damage. So overall, this is going to give us more damage in the long run. Every now and then you will low roll and then you'll do less damage. But when you do 200% damage, you're going to be able to one-shot the boss or the enemies. So that's obviously going to be quite valuable. And even 50%, you might be able to still one-shot it because it's just so much damage you're going to be able to do. We're also making use of Shield Affinity. This is going to give us 30% increased damage while having a shield, but receiving any damage always removes all shields. Again, extra damage while having a shield, and we are going to have extra shields in this build because of the fact that we're making use of all these shield perks. We also have Solo Fighters that we're going to be able to do 50% more damage when fighting alone, and the reason why we have this is because you do want your allies to die very often in order to make use of that extra shield for Myel so that she can do more damage. So very often you just let your allies die. So if you do want to go that route, that's going to be an option for you. And then last but not least, we're going to have Warming Up, and this is going to be obtained by defeating the Grossate Tate world boss of the continent, and defeating Grossate Tate will give you the Warming Up Picto, which is going to do 5% increased damage per turn and can stack up to 5 times for an extra 25% damage, assuming the fight even lasts that long, which it probably won't, but if it does, having extra damage can always be quite valuable. And moving on now to our attributes, we're going to be making use of a weapon that's going to scale with agility and defense. So you're going to want to put as much attribute points in agility and defense. We have it at 99 each. And then we also have our might at 45 because, again, every little bit of damage is going to be important. We also have our luck put up to 18 just to make sure that we have enough to get your critical rate up as high as possible. And that's going to be very important because more critical rate means that you're going to be able to do more damage. And that is obviously going to be very crucial. So overall, that is going to be the build guide. This is still capable of one-shotting literally every single enemy and boss in the entire game. And that is going to mean that it's pretty much just as powerful as before if you think about it. Like the difference between doing 1 billion damage and 50 million damage is actually negligible considering the fact that both are going to one-shot every single enemy in the game. So for the most part, it doesn't actually really feel like a nerf, but you are going to have to do some obviously tinkering around here. For example, what we did with the Monoka, in order to allow Myel to still achieve that massive damage, she's going to have some prerequisites that are going to be a little bit different than before, but still capable of doing immense damage. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the guide. If you did, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments section below. How are you feeling about the Stendhal nerf? Do you like it? Do you not like it? If you don't, let me know why. I'll see you guys again next time. Take care, everyone, and bye-bye.